whatever you believe life to be, that's what it'll be for you. So if you think life is hard, life is hard.
Yeah.
If you think life is beautiful, life is beautiful. Because life is all of those things. We are inextricably a part of life, part of the creation. And life is just responding. Wherever we are in our being, in consciousness, we attract to ourselves, or we are attracted to the people, the circumstances, the opportunities, and the obstacles. So when you realize the truth of this, you realize that you don't have to really do anything else except work on yourself. You can just watch the entire world start to transform around you as everything starts responding to you differently. An important factor is a person's comfort and fearlessness in expressing their creative self.
Hello and welcome to Curious Ones podcast by Yandara. I'm Yael Ginzburg, the host of the podcast, a yoga and meditation teacher and philosophy lover. Each week you will hear eye-opening interviews with the different teachers of the Yandara Yoga Institute, located in beautiful Baja, Mexico, along with other teachers that pass through here. This life-changing knowledge, shared through authentic, heartfelt communication, will help you live a happier, more fulfilled, and connected life. Let's dive in. Hello, welcome back to Curious Ones podcast by Yandara. I'm Yael Ginzburg, and today I am so honored to have the legendary Mercy Ananda. If you've been here at Yandara, you definitely know who they are. They are the most prominent, inspiring, and just divine teachers I have ever met, and I know that many students feel this way. We were trying to figure out how to describe their work because it is so widespread and so diverse. So I think it's better to just give them the stage to tell us a little bit about themselves, their work, and then we'll flow into the subject for today. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. You're so kind, Yael.
It's from the heart. So go ahead, tell us a little bit about what it is you do. Mercy?
Well, we've just been thinking about that a bit, and the way that it seems to have evolved through our lives is that initially both of us have made a commitment to yoga, really, to the journey that yoga offers all beings, the opportunity to really work with your own incarnation here through working on so many different levels, like the energy body level, your physical body as it relates to the energy body, your emotional. I think yoga just covers everything, hence the name, right? That oneness I see in so many different things. So then the idea, I think the feeling that's come from like a lifetime of holding those concepts and tools and really bringing them into our everyday lives is a feeling of that yoga is not just a personal thing, but that it is also a community, a collective energetic, a unified energetic. And so for me, when I was younger, I did spend a lot of time working on myself, and the focus was more that way. But as I've gotten older, and being here at Yandara too is an amazing opportunity to really move into collective sharing and a group sharing, work with being able to help people find those tools within themselves, really encourage people to love the expression of who they are, and celebrate together and just kind of have fun together. This beautiful possibility that we're all involved in, this beautiful potential of creating a world that works for everyone and has space for everyone. And really that is my deepest kind of intention, in a way, is to just help share and facilitate the healing energy of our life, our collective life, and as well as individual lives here on this earth. Yeah.
That's beautiful and so well said.
Thank you.
How
about you, Das? How would you explain your work?
Well, I think I'd agree with Mercy that kind of fairly young, the spiritual questions came up in me, and I think that my search for truth, whatever that means, has been sincere, and I persisted in that. I don't really consider myself a teacher in the formal sense, more in the sense that I'm very interested in learning, very curious, constantly asking the questions, and I love to share what I'm learning along the way. And so that has sort of filtered in the music that we do, and my journey with astrology, in our sound, all those kind of things. So I think it's just that I'm just continuing along on my search, and because I don't think it's a never-ending process, and I'm just sharing what I'm learning along the way.
I love that, and it reminds me, a few days ago we were sitting at the lunch table, and you shared with me that you feel that you've evolved so much just in the last year that we haven't seen each other. Mm-hmm. And I was so inspired by that because, I feel that people in older age are usually resigned to, okay, what I know, what I don't know, it's too late already, it's too late for me to change. and then by that you kind of give up, And when you said that, I was like, wow, that's so beautiful that even now you keep learning and exploring and evolving and just being open to it, which is, I think, the key. Yeah. And I just thought it was really beautiful.
I'm actually surprised always that I'm always learning. There's always new things to learn.
Oh, there's more.
It's very, keeps you engaged in life,
Beautiful. So let's get into the topic of today's subject or conversation. Since you both are really artists, specifically in music and astrology, and thus you're writing a book, and in so many ways, and just in your life, in creation of working with energy in order to manifest the life that you have, I thought that could be a really great subject, because I think that anybody in this world has the capacity and ability to be an artist in their life, in whatever field you are in. Even an accountant can be an artist in that work. So the process of creation and creating art is relevant to everybody. So please share with us a little bit how you approach the process of creation. Das, maybe you can start. About how do you begin when you notice something is coming up for you? How do you approach it? How do you negotiate it with yourself? And then with the rest of the process.
I think for me, it's first necessary to talk about how we are creative, just as beings. Everybody is creative. and everybody is artistic. I don't think people realize how much they are the architect of their own lives, you know, and how the creative process works. Because we usually think of, being creative as expressing yourself or accomplishing this or doing that or having this goal that we go towards, or we're doing this, that we think about being creative as an active thing. But what I've discovered is, and this where it gets into kind of the spiritual realm of creation.
Go as far as you'd like.
Yeah. What I feel and have experienced is that, so we are inextricably a part of life, part of the creation that is happening all the time, now and forever. And life is just responding to wherever we are in our being in consciousness. Life responds. So wherever we are in our being in consciousness, we attract to ourselves, or we are attracted to the people, the circumstances, the opportunities, and the obstacles, whatever corresponds to wherever we are in our being. So when you realize the truth of this, you realize that you don't have to really do anything else except work on yourself. Being in consciousness.
I love that.
And as you
exactly
find the balance, awaken your consciousness, you can just watch the entire world start to transform around you as everything starts responding to you differently.
So true.
I think that's the thing. And so everybody's creative. And being an artist, the word art comes from being. Art, to be. And so their being is what is creative. So everybody's creating in their own life by how, and it's a very complicated thing, because it has not only to do with our physical energy, but our belief system, in that life responding. I also see that whatever you believe life to be, that's what it'll be for you. And that's creative. It's very, very creative.
Right.
Life just will reflect it back to you.
Right.
And so, faith comes into it a lot. And
in what way?
Well, because what you believe in, that's what life. So if you think life is hard, life is hard.
Yeah.
If you think life is beautiful, life is beautiful. Because life is all of those things.
And if you believe that you can create something or can't, it's true.
Yeah.
There's a saying by Henry Ford, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right.
Exactly. Of course, it's not that simple. There's many factors involved. We can want things and not accomplish them, and there's reasons for that too. But if you're sincere and you really feel it and you believe it, you're going to succeed. I believe that completely. But there's so many layers. Psychologically and physically, and every layer of our being plays a part in that. So this is where yoga comes in, because yoga is working with the physical, working with the emotional, working with the spiritual, psychological, to find the balance. And I've seen that, in our lives, how we don't really set goals, that we want to do. We never said we wanted to come to Yandara and this is what we want to do. Okay. But I feel like just through the sincerity of our path, it led us to this, and gave us this opportunity to do this. And
I totally understand what you mean, and I want to highlight that, because now there's a lot of focus on manifestation, which can be in a way artificial, because you think you know what's good for you better than what might actually be good for you. Yeah. And the way that you framed it really puts it in such a beautiful way, that it's not about creating your life from your mind, but it's about working on your being. Exactly. In order to allow life to show to you and reveal to you what is the right path for you.
So you set an intention, you want to do this, you want to do that. So maybe you are good at organizing, setting objectives and, taking the steps necessary. You're good at that maybe. So you achieve whatever you've put your mind to. But if you're still the same person you always were, with the same self-limiting beliefs and ideals and prejudices and fears and whatever, well, you just get that and you just recreate the same thing.
Yeah.
So the object is within. The object is to become the person who will fulfill that role.
100%.
Because the role doesn't make the person. It's the person who makes the role, whatever
Yes.
it will be.
And we know that because every person doing the same role does it completely differently.
So it's always comes back to working on yourself.
Yeah, thank you. That's such an important point. Mercy, I would love to hear from you. How do you approach the process of creation?
I think what you said about, that there could be another energetic that's involved other than just our own idea about what we want to do is probably where I first start, and that is that I kind of maybe I find gratitude. I think I work for like a feeling of connection to the wholeness energy, to source wholeness. And I actually am working all the time on the balance between what I feel is my personal energetic, my ideas, my creative ideas, and opening it up for the highest good. So I usually have like a little affirmation that I do where I kind of visualize or understand what I might want to offer, but then at the same time, I say, well, whatever's for the highest good, as it manifests. So I try and include both those energetics in my creation process. And for me, creativity comes as visions, inner visions, inner ideas. Like I'll hear something inside, or, I'll start fiddling around on one of my instruments and something will just start to come up all kind of on its own, like I'm sort of receiving this kind of energetic, or if I'm writing, I'm letting the energy kind of flow along a little bit. I'm not very controlled with it. I'm more pretty open with energy and sort of open to receive. And I used to be, for instance, a weaver and a fiber artist.
Really?
Yeah. And, I developed the skills with the tools. That's kind of something that you focus on. But I used to do like mini, like really big fiber sculptures.
Wow.
And I would just kind of think, oh, wow. I would see it in my mind's eye. And then I just look around for things that might be able to make that happen. And I never really had a total plan, but I could just kind of, imagine it. And then I'd start putting it together, and then I'd sort of let it form as it was. So I have the basic skills of putting something together, right? But also there's a lot of freedom in it for me, and inspiration, and kind of in a way that's like a super fun part of it, because I'm not strict with myself trying to make it be a certain way. So I like to feel the openness of the process and be involved in kind of the joy and inspiration of the process, and be surprised about what might happen at the end, and thankful and faithful that I've been involved in kind of a stream of energy. And a lot of times I don't even really I remember when I was the fiber artist, I worked for a designer, and she used to take my pieces and she'd put them in big companies, because they were big. So they went in the telephone company in Los Angeles, right? Really big on the wall. And I'd see a picture of it and I go, wow. And I was never really that attached to it. It's funny, for me, it's like, it's the process and the fun of the process, and being in a lifestyle for me that's really important to me, that I'm in a lifestyle that allows me to be creative and to be able to have the time and to be able to support myself in that way. And for me, it's not something that I recognize about myself. And your comment about a person could be an accountant and be creative, I really resonate with that as well too. I believe that anyone can bring that kind of inspiration. It's like if they care about what they're doing, right? That's creativity. You're involved in it, and it's inspiring for you, and maybe it's a service to other people as an accountant. When you bring your joy of like playing with numbers, and seeing how numbers are fascinating, like the sacred geometry in a way, So I too don't really limit it to any profession. I think it's like a way of life that we can all choose to just open up to that.
I love that. I think what I'm really taking from that is that when we're too kind of fixed about how creation needs to go, whether it's creating a piece of art or creating a project or a professional endeavor, which I think could have a little more pressure on it rather than a work of art. But when we let go of the image or perception of what we think it needs to be and allow space for our inspiration, and maybe one could say like divine guidance in that, then it enhances, first of all, our experience, and then also, of course, the product. But as you mentioned, it's about the process, and that is the most important part. It's the most meaningful part, and it also determines the end goal, which we can't completely ignore. We want to have some sort of success or harmony or just connection in that.
Exactly. It's kind of like a balance, it's just finding that nice little balance between, having the end goal be a good product, but at the same time, the whole process is good too.
Yeah.
Right?
So how do you find that balance?
For me, it's being very aware of my feelings in the moment, undercurrents of energy that are in my environment. Like for me, I just know what I like and helps me relax into my creative process. Like I need to be by nature. I need to have a certain amount of time where I'm just like, oh boy, I'm going to go out and I'm going to water my garden, little plants, and I'm going to say hi to the little birds. There's all these birds around, so I talk to the birds, I know it's kind of out there, but I really enjoy like those sweet moments, simple moments in life. And, if I were involved in like a production process, for me, it would be much harder to find that creativity stream, right? So for me, nature is very healing and very important, I think, for all of us, because I've been studying lately. I kind of have this hobby. I'm like an amateur at it, but studying quantum physics and quantum biology.
Fascinating.
Right? And especially, after I was working with quantum physics for quite a while, it's like sort of big, vast concepts, which fascinated me. But now I'm working more in how this energy that we all share actually relates to the physical body, and how it can bring healing to our very cells, and how our cells have the mechanism to be able to transfer things like earth energy or sunlight. They actually transfer and have that ability to take that information, that energy information from our natural world, our nature, into the cell itself, use it as in an information chain within the cells, let's say in the mitochondria, as they chain together and talk to each other. At the end of that information chain comes ATP, which is, basically taking the pranic energy of the universe in nature and translating it to health within the body. It's a field called quantum biology, right? So for me, in order to be able to sustain myself as a human being that is renewing all the time, and that's what the Om is, like the chant of Om is called the pranava. It's another word for Om, right? Which means ever fresh, ever new, right? And it relates to that substratum of energy that's constantly vibrating within our very quanta field that makes up our whole field of existence, right? These little whirlpools, the PSUs, the little whirlpools of Planck spherical units swirling around at the most nascent substratum essence of creation, right? Is this energy, and that energy draws particles towards it, and those particles are, since they're moving and spinning in little tiny spiral whirlpools, right? Vortexes, those particles create a little sound because they're spinning. And that's what the Om represents. It's that vibration that's constantly going. And that's why, like yogins, they get up at 3 a.m. and they sit there really quietly because you can actually kind of hear it, within your own being if you're still enough, and you kind of connect up enough to the source energy. And then those little particles that are creating sound, they bang into each other, they kind of knock into each other in the movement, and they create light, right? So that sound and light at the basis of all things is an energy field that's available to all of us. And our body is perfectly designed to translate that information, that electromagnetic information that's created by this movement and by the light. And so you ask me what's most integral to me in my process. It's being attuned to that. And I find that being in nature really helps. Taking time to just be barefoot and sit out by the water or give thanks or listen to the trees, everything's singing, they've got these beautiful, what's so beautiful nowadays is that they have these amazing instruments that can measure, you've seen the little, sensors they put on the plant. This plant is like, she's got her own song right now. She's singing this crystal right here, everything. Your body is singing and humming. So
especially around you guys.
So it's this great, beautiful, grand kind of connective, energetic that I don't know. That's what inspires me to create.
Oh, you inspire me to create. It's beautiful, and I can definitely resonate with that on such a deep level. I have to say, like, the first time I really experienced it was during my first YTT. It was in India, in Goa. And it was the first time that I really woke up on a consistent basis at around 6 a.m., which is maybe 3 hours late, but it's still pretty quiet.
It's good.
Yeah. And I can still, if I think back to those moments, I immediately feel that energy, which was so special.
Yeah.
So, Das, you mentioned before about those things that kind of could inhibit us on the process and hold us back. Nowadays, we call it blocks, or I don't know, maybe even shadows. Could you expand a little bit about that and how we could get past these blocks?
Yeah, creativity. So, an important factor is a person's comfort and fearlessness in expressing their creative self.
Right.
And this, again, kind of goes back to the search for truth, because what is successful in this world is authenticity, people expressing their true creative self.
So true.
And of course, there's many levels to that. There's people who are very creative who aren't necessarily spiritual, but they succeed in this world. And so this could get off into a long tangent about, what is success in this world, of course.
Yeah.
But as far as being able to express yourself, it's really being honest and fearless about expressing yourself. A lot of people make choices in life, they could take a job or something that's not inspiring to them. It's not their true self.
It's not honest, yeah.
Yeah, they're not willing to risk it. And
not honest with themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first step, is to be fearless and going for your, expressing your truth, following your inspiration. And then, the rest, that's where it gets very complicated, because we ultimately want to be happy and fulfilled in whatever we are expressing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it gets tricky, because we can be successful at making a lot of money or becoming very famous or something like that. But that's definitely not necessarily going to make you happy.
Right.
It could actually create a lot of problems for yourself. So
we've heard a lot of stories of people who have achieved that and were very unhappy.
So, looking at it from a spiritual perspective, we have to be sort of careful about how we are creative, because it has an effect on not only ourselves, but the entire world. So, truth, what is it? So that gets into, who are we?
Yes.
Who are we in truth? Who is our true self?
I can ask you in here, how are you fearless and courageous in expressing your truth and being who you are?
Well, that is something I think I've been born with, this sort of impulsiveness.
Mercy's like, yes.
It's gotten me into a lot of trouble, kind of a rebel.
Yeah.
And, they don't just go along with things because that's what you're supposed to do. I've always been fearless, and that, yes, has gotten me into a lot of trouble. Nothing.
I bet there's some good stories in there.
Nothing terribly serious as far as, the law or anything goes. But anyway, just in, if you're willing to take risks, well, you make mistakes. And hopefully we learn from the mistakes if we're paying attention. And so the quest is really, yes, not only just being expressive or creative, expressing whatever truth is, because truth is, that is a big word. It's not easily defined or really hard to find, and maybe even more difficult to express. It's a big word. And for every person, that could mean something different. So the search for truth is, you can't ever stop with that. You can't ever rest on thinking. I think that's the problem, is we settle somewhere and then we're limited. It's like learning. It's kind of like the process of the mind. The mind wants to form conclusions because the mind's trying to make sense out of this world. So it's looking for answers. It goes, and it forms a conclusion. Now, what is a conclusion? It's a closing of the mind.
Exactly.
And when you close your mind, well, then you're not learning anymore.
Right.
So this is part of my spiritual path, is just not to close my mind and not to take anything as a conclusion, but just, learn along the way and grow from it, but always be open to the next thing, because learning is endless.
Right.
And I kind of feel like that in my creative expression too, that I don't form conclusions necessarily, but it's more like the process that I'm involved in, which is always evolving. I do astrology, and I'm always surprised at how it evolves all the time, and I'm always seeing different things and expressing different things, and I'm surprised. I surprise myself. This happens. I'm happy about it. It really brings me a lot of joy. I love to write. That's kind of what I do every morning, and it's just a kind of a stream of consciousness thing, and it just evolves all the time, which makes the writing difficult because. Oh yeah, you have to go back. It's that kind of
the process of writing a book,
rewriting. Yeah.
It's all written already, but
yeah. So you kind of make in the creative process. We make a structure that's like a container in a way. Like every morning, Dawes writes at a certain time for a certain number of hours, and he loves doing it. So he loves to do that. That time is his special time, and he's made that container, to receive, and then from there.
Such an important point.
Yeah, it is balanced. You can't just be like completely amorphic in a way. There's
only inspiration. It'll come to me.
Yeah. You gotta work it a little bit. You gotta bring the energy down, like to the physical plane too, and make some parameters to contain things. Yeah.
What I've been working on lately and realizing this search for truth, you hear often in spiritual circles, and that we're looking for our true self. What is the true self? And I've been sort of asking that question for a long time. And what I've realized is a lot of when you hear that, somebody say looking for your true self, there's an implication in that this true self is something other than who you already are. And I started to say, well, how can that be? So this is where creativity sort of, for me, really makes a difference, because however we express ourselves, that is our truth at that moment.
I think, though, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, I think what that refers to is all the conditioning that we have on us of what we're supposed to be, and also I feel like what we think that we're supposed to be.
Exactly. We have an image, or at least we're trying to form an image of something that makes sense, But what I've discovered, the true self, So when we're relaxed, when we're feeling safe, when we're feeling confident, when our heart is open, when we're patient and we're kind to one another, and and we accept life with openness, that's our true self.
And that comes back to working on your internal state.
And so we can express ourselves honestly from where we are, and that is creative. So if we want to make a lot of money, we can make a lot of money. If we want to build an incredible car, we can build an incredible car, and that's all good. There's nothing wrong with that, and that could very well be service to the world. It is. And, but the more, what will make it satisfying is when we can do it from this place within that is kind, is considerate, is patient, is open-hearted, because that's what you're giving to the world.
Yeah.
I see it especially in music, right? You see what is popular. So what succeeds in music is you're expressing sort of the angst of that generation, right? So you're expressing something that people can relate to. But most of the time, that's a big reaction, And so, because there's an angst that, and the music really expresses it. So, the popular music expresses that angst. That's kind of like why, spiritual music, kirtan, things like that don't really at this point aren't really, addressing the mass. Because
no angst.
It is expressing something different. But with the emergence of yoga and the yoga and people being exposed to yoga and yoga philosophy and having that, it's bringing in something that I feel is, not only expressing something that is in everyone's heart, but it's offering them an opportunity to experience that. So I think that's why yoga is becoming very popular now, because this is really what people want. They want to find the inner peace. They want to find the happiness. They want to find the true creative expression that is expressing something that is really healthy and good and beautiful. And not necessarily reactionary, even though, I can understand. I mean, in my young years, I was very reactionary, so I can totally relate to it. But I've sort of decided in my life, that's not how I want to be. I don't want to be expressing reaction. I don't want to be expressing something positive.
And that in itself is the process of creation, deciding the place within yourself you want to be creating from.
Exactly. And being fearless to express it.
Yeah. Hey, I'm quickly interrupting the episode to extend an invitation. If you are interested in deepening into any of the subjects we talk about on the podcast, we offer many different experiences on our beautiful grounds here in Baja, Mexico. From 9-day modules such as sound healing and yoga nidra, to breath and meditation, as well as 200 or 300-hour yoga teacher trainings, and many different shorter retreats. Check out our website, Yandara.com, to see all the information about the different experiences. Let's get back to the episode. So I want to forward that question also to Mercy, but before that, I want to really highlight that how I relate to what you said is that there's a difference between creating, let's say, from like the place of the mind or maybe the ego, and creating from a higher, more clear, relaxed place within yourself. So Mercy, I'd love to hear from you. How do you release fear and embrace courage in this process of creation?
Well, what this part of the conversation really brought up for me as I was listening is the acceptance of your journey, right? I really worked on adopting an understanding that every single thing that happens to us in our lives, whether from one viewpoint it is like that we're uptight or reactionary or whatever, or that we're in a job that, is not really exactly what we want to do. I actually really view that as a perfect process for each one of us, right? Rather than the idea, and I think it's integral to the healing of finally coming to a place where you understand where your natural flow is. But to me, if we look at our lives and we put ourselves down, we say, oh God, I make these terrible mistakes and blah, blah, blah. We create like a blockage in our energy flow. And we create pain and we create trauma and we hold on to it, right? So for me, and I know that's a process to come to the understanding of the acceptance of your path, each person's journey, our own places within that as being the exact perfect creative process, right? Rather than to say, oh, we should be like this, right? I think that little tiny bit of subtle understanding frees us from the shoulds of this world and frees us into a flow that is really loving. That I was listening to something the other day, and there was this phrase, I'm going to kind of paraphrase it, but it was like that the source energy is love itself, right? And when we think about it, the source energy being this oneness energy that's available, and we all live like little bits of it, right? All of us are like, little parts of it, kind of doing, everything is like everything, we're all this oneness kind of dancing together, like if we had those sea anemones, they're like this, and they've got all these little fingers, and they're all moving together, and you're one of these, I'm one of these, Das is one of these, and but that there's this intrinsic wholeness about even our bodies, right? So when I feel that, and I feel that, to me, people say, well, the source is love, like that expression. And I've always kind of wondered about it. And I go, well, how do they know? Because I have a mind that thinks a lot too, right?
Thank God.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the process has been long, and there's been times when I've been in great doubt, and I restrict myself from even, there were for many years where I would not let myself believe in anything other than what I could see. And I did it as an experiment, actually. And it took several years to just kind of feel, okay, and then I slowly grew into more of being able to feel and understand the world of energy, right? And so that energy is all of us, right? And available to all of us to use in whatever creative way we want, right? It's so humble that it just lets itself be used however any of us decide. And to me, that is really love. And so then, as we reflect, how loving can we be to ourselves and our journey? I know, I'm such a sad. My kids always go, oh, Mom, why do you read these bedtime stories and cry? When they were little, I was like,
good
I
night,
would cry
Moon.
every little bit. But anyway.
Thank you for shining.
But, so that open lovingness, just that ability to, spread energy as wide as it needs to be and just welcome everyone in their expression, right? That's to me, the foundational energy of existence. And so we can take that, going back then to our own perception about our journey, right? Our creativity and our life, the mistakes we've made, all the little turns here and there, as being, let's give ourselves that much love, right? That much freedom to be able to, and humility to be able to, access our own path and make mistakes. It's like a child, I'm sure many people, who have children, it's like your children act up. Oh my gosh, they're just going, this or that. But do you condemn them? No. You see them as being in a process, right? And the same with, to me, our perception about ourselves, our perception about society in general, our perception about history, the legacy from the whole energy that is held in the earthly current of all, energies. Like I had one of these, a student last year, he's such a beautiful young man from Belgium, and he's a nuclear physicist, right? He's been a yoga student of ours. And we have these great inspiring talks, right? And I asked him to even talk to the class because he's got this understanding, and so he said, energy is never lost. It only can transform, right? And it and so it's in a process constantly. And so held in the energy field that we all live within are the energetics of our earthly history, right? And everything, all the suffering that we've been through. To cry again. But for me, that idea of the suffering, if I can look at it as a process in a way, even the terrible things that have happened, I really try and see them as one would see their child, in a loving way, right? It took me a long time to do because I was very, very upset for many years of my life about the injustices and the inequities in this world, suffering. It just absolutely devastated me when I started thinking about it, learning and looking at history, and I could not reconcile how that would be allowed to happen.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I used to just feel so hurt and so confused, right? Until I started to open up to like a less kind of mental, constrictive, limited way of looking at it, and opened up to the feeling of a process. And, yoga helped me so much with that, honestly. It really did, yeah.
I think everybody, everybody's looking for perfection. Everybody has this image of what things should or shouldn't be, and I don't think we can fully appreciate, or we do fully appreciate imperfection. If everything was perfect, we wouldn't have anything to do. Everything would be boring. Everything would be done.
Yeah.
Right?
We wouldn't even incarnate, probably.
So it's not about looking for perfection. No.
Yeah.
It's about how we deal with imperfection, and how we handle it, because that's the nature of this world. It's imperfect, but that's the wisdom of the divine, manifest. That we don't understand it. We're thinking things should be like this, but no. We think we're smarter than the divine by thinking it should be any differently different than it always is. But our opportunity is to meet what comes and handle it in the most conscious, beautiful way we can. That's quite a gift, really, when you think about it, that opportunity. So it's difficult. This world is a difficult world, but how we meet it, that's the important thing.
Beautiful. So when we talk about the process of creation, within that I see also the process of really creating our children and the people that they're going to be in society. I was just with my nephews before coming here, and it's beautiful to see how really you can mold and shape them, their mind, their consciousness, and in addition to their own development and process, of course. But as experienced parents, I would love to hear your opinion on it.
Well, in my observation of the process, so you have children, and you don't, all of a sudden you go from being a single person, free, and all of a sudden, I heard this children and parents are born on the same day.
That's true.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden you're a parent, and you don't really, nobody's ever ready for it. So you're doing the best you can. And then what I've noticed is each successive child after that, we've evolved. We've got a little bit, their experience gets affected, and and each one sort of, I don't know if better is the right word, but they don't have the same problems as, because
the previous child.
Well, I think that for first children, they're experiencing your confusion, you're flailing, you're trying to do the best you can, but not having any clue what you're doing. You're just learning.
Thanks for the honesty.
and they reflect that, and as you sort of learn and grow, then so it's really the best way you can teach, and that's not only for children, it's through your own being. We teach through the example of our being. That's our teaching.
Right.
That is our creative expression, actually. So, yeah.
And I forget the word, like that when you vibrate at a certain word, it makes something
Resonance.
Resonance, exactly. And there's another word for it, but
There's
Entrainment.
entrainment,
They have
exactly.
slightly different meanings, which are really
Okay.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So resonance is if you have, let's say, one energy vibrating here, like a frequency,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have the same frequency over here, let's say, this one vibrating in its movement will get this one going. Immediately they go together.
That's
right?
resonance.
That's resonance. They're
Mhm.
both the same, and they both vibrate together, like almost instantly. That's that spooky movement that Einstein talked about in quantum physics, or entanglement. Like once they have a relationship, any kind of particle, no matter how far away it is, they immediately resonate, and there's almost no time difference in their connection.
Right.
That's why the Dalai Lama says that once you become friend with someone, it is eternal.
It's so true, and I can feel that truth.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's really all about energy.
Yeah.
And so then what's the other one, honey? Entrainment, right. Entrainment is if you have a different frequency. So you've got a resonance, a vibration going on over here, and this one's different. If this one is harmonious, let's say you're playing a Tibetan bowl, right? And they're built to hold a certain kind of harmony. When they're made, they're, mantras are made by hand, and mantras are chanted, and there's a very ancient science of how to create this vessel of harmony, basically. Yeah. So you play that, and maybe somebody over here has had a hard day, and they're in your circle. Maybe they've come to your yoga class.
And a little out of harmony.
Exactly. They're in Shavasana, but it's been difficult for them, right? The bowl, just playing the bowl, the vibrations, literally, physically, will come over to the other vibrations that are a bit out of harmony. And as Dr. Bruce H. Lipton, he says, he's an amazing microbiologist, he says that the body and the being, our life, moves towards harmony. Everything moves towards harmony. Yeah. Right. You can trust that, right? And so if you hold harmony, then that idea of entrainment is that it'll draw the energy over towards harmony.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks
that's
for that
kind of
distinction.
the principle of sound healing. That's how it works. Yeah.
And we could think about that in relationship to raising a family and children, right? Maybe some children that are incarnate with you, and it's what I've studied is that families incarnate in lineages that, they kind of stay together through different incarnations because they're working on a certain vibrational resonance, right? They're working on some kind of quality. All of them, are learning about, right? They're experiencing it in many different ways. And so they're lines of lineages. And some child might come in and they're just like perfectly attuned, right? And they're an easy child, right? Others might come in and there's some entrainment going on because their energy is there to work towards harmony. So as a parent, respecting, first of all, to me, respect is the bottom line. Respecting their energy, because everyone is like part of that wholeness, right? And in that, Das used to say to me, he goes, you never really know anyone until you see them as divine, right? And so I take that as the bottom line, that this, and that's how I really work to perceive all beings that I'm with. And in a way, I look at everyone as family, right? Because we're all that connected oneness soul. And that's who we really are, right? And then we come in with different energetics that we're working out, that we've held on to, myself included. All of us incarnate on this planet are working things out. And so just to respect that with a child, to me, is really important. Number one, right there. And then offering whatever, like we've been talking about in creativity, the idea of kind of a balance between a container and structure and an openness, right? To see what happens. I find it, for me, the way I always approached living with my children and guiding my children was that I would offer to them communication, right? Think about and know and feel the love that's the basis of our connection, and then let them flower, right? And help them a little bit with this or that. But like, for instance, we never spanked our kids or anything like that. We made a commitment when we were, early on parents that, that kind, because you in a way have to make a container with children. You need to have some boundaries. And that's really tricky for a lot of people.
It's very important, and yet it's really hard to know where that line is.
It really is. It's really difficult. And so, the idea, you could consider yourself, the old golden rule, like do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Mm-hmm. How would you like it if you were treated in a certain way?
Yeah,
right?
I think we forget that when it comes to our kids.
We do. What happens is we get all bound up in responsibility.
Yeah,
we've got to do this and that. We've got to make sure, what I mean? And we let that, which we are responsible, but we let that kind of move us into, restrictive kind of strange ways. We sort of, so to find, like I said, that balance between the container and the open energetic flow. Right?
It's a, I see in myself that it's a lot about just resistance, because when you get harsher with your child, it's when you reach that point you don't want to deal with it, so you're trying to, so you react harshly. So work on yourself to remain patient, flowing, and sympathetic, and sort of respectful. That's the yoga. And of course, any sociologist you ever talk to will confirm, that the harmony in the home is so much reflected in the child. It's not a hard, fast rule, but nonetheless, if people, someone who grows up in a home that's harmonious, has a much easier time than a turbulent upbringing. So it's all about the working on yourself and the relationship, especially the relationship between the parents. That's so important. That is more effect on the child than I think anybody gives credit to. I know they do, but it's like crucial.
Yeah.
I remember reading this book a long time ago. It was called The Magical Child by Joseph Chilton Pearce. And one of the main concepts I took from that was that if a child grows up in an environment where they feel full, they felt nourished and full, by all the different ways that a parent could offer that, right? That when they get to be an adult, they come out to the world and they feel full and they can give out.
Exactly.
But if they've had a lifetime of kind of restrictions and lack, in even, it could be like abundant, like materially, but lacking in respect or connection or love, all the ways that we make connection as a parent, they come to the world feeling like a lack and they want to get something from the world, right? And
to fill something.
Yeah, they want to be filled. They need to pull, and not that we don't have both those energies going on all the time, within ourselves, because we all need to receive.
Mm.
But the idea of, instead of just receiving, just to let that energy flow, right? Like in the toroidal structure, I always go back to energy with everything.
It's the basis of everything.
Exactly. I think of that toroidal flow. It's outward to share and inward to receive. And that's what keeps life going to me.
Exactly. It's about the balance. It's being able to flow with the give and receive energy that's always naturally moving, rather than being in this place like you always need to get or take because you feel that something is lacking.
Exactly.
So maybe just kind of, as to wrap this up and maybe the whole conversation, how does one find that place within themselves? And how does one teach that to children or students or, just people in our sphere of fullness and balance?
I think that's can be answered very simply, but it's also a very complex thing because every individual has their own history and what they're dealing with, stuff like that. But basically, fullness, even happiness, is our natural state. We don't have to look for it. In the looking, there is the implication that we don't have it, which makes it impossible to find. So we don't really have to look at it, but what keeps us from feeling that happiness is like the mind, telling us all these stories and, our interpretation, our perception of the world, our experiences, we get tense. Well, in astrology, it's probably the easiest way for the four elements: earth, water, fire, and air. So in the zodiac, earth is always opposite water, and fire is always opposite air. So fire is energy, and air is a space where energy gets expressed. So we have this fire, this energy that flows through us. So we can express it freely, no boundaries, no direction gets dissipated. It's all over the place, there's no, it just gets, wasted. Or we hold it in, and then we, maybe express it very focusedly and, very intensely. And both of those things, if we're wasting it, you're kind of like directionless. If you're too focused on things, that energy, it becomes really hot because it's just flowing naturally. And then we get tense. So, and this is a lot has to do with our beliefs, because it's actually our thoughts and our beliefs on what we think is happening, or we are judging things, and it causes us to get tense. Right? But we want to be connected, right? So when we connect, we open up. And when we open up, we make ourselves vulnerable, right? And then we get vulnerable, and then we get hurt, and then tense up again.
Exactly.
That's water.
So
and that's earth, right?
And that's water and earth. So then, so it's like energy and tension. And if you look at what illness, dis-ease, right? So we're not at ease. Our energy isn't flowing. So basically, the balance, not too hot, not too cold, not too hard, not too hot, or not too hard, not too soft, right? You're full.
That's what we were talking about also in the process of creation, that you have to kind of create this container in order to let creativity or inspiration to come. And it reminds me of a concept that I actually learned here, Stira and Sukha, the balance between effort and ease, which I really have taken with me, and I incorporate it all the time in my life since. And that's what you're talking about, basically. Like, you're not too much on one side and not too much on the other side, but finding both qualities in the present moment. And that allows us to really be in balance and harmony.
It's complex because, I mean, yoga, what's nice about yoga is you're dealing with those things without really thinking about it. You know, you're just trying to find balance in your flow and you're energetic in the way, you know, and your ability to stretch is kind of like bypasses the mind. But the mind is really important because our beliefs and our judgments cause so much tension, and our energetic, we learn how to meet the world, you know, maybe we're nervous, so so we meet a certain way, you know. So it's working on all these levels. It's not simply, you have to work with your mind and your belief and your faith and all those kinds of things to be able to settle in. Let yourself be full, right? And meet the world with that. Like I said, that's your true self.
Yeah.
You're full, you're relaxed, you can handle anything, you know, you're patient. Not an easy place to find, and especially not easy to sustain, you know, but that's the practice. We just have to keep practicing. That's yoga.
I know, I remember you telling me once a long time ago that in astrology, you know, we have the big circle and we have the different planets kind of representing where our energy polarizes or moves out. But we have the center of the circle, right? And that center is the true self, where it's everything is just balanced in there. Yeah. And I was thinking just a second ago as you were speaking of the medicine wheel, of the indigenous medicine wheel, the people of Turtle Island. And, you know, that wheel is a circle and it has different colors, right? Representing all different peoples in this world, you know, and each color represents a kind of a nation of peoples, the color of their skin, their qualities, you know, that they kind of bring to life naturally in that country. And then there's the idea of the medicine wheel as a whole, and all those factions move together, right? With the hoop, right? The hoop is that energy that we're talking about, the earth, water, fire, and air. That's the four, but the hoop is to me the fifth element, which is ether. And ether represents that wholeness and that source energy, which, you know, is kind of the underlying fundamental for all of us, and that's where our oneness lives. And so, you know, you ask, like, how do we find that within ourselves, right? Is that your question? And I would say, you know, for me, the idea that trust, that life, and the energy that each of us bring in all our little steps in life, trust that life is your greatest teacher, right? That it reflects to you where you need to tweak a little bit, kind of just trying, you know, as we go along, we awaken naturally. It's like, you know, this beautiful field of flowers. And one flower is over here just in full bloom, and there's one that's just coming up, you know, from the seed. But who says that little one that's coming up from the seed eventually, you know, months later might be in full bloom? And isn't that bloom as beautiful as that one over here, right? So to me, the process is absolutely equal. There's no time involved in it. Nobody's better than anybody else. It's simply the life in its beautiful, abundant creation. For me, trust that within yourself. To me, I would say, what I've had to really teach myself is not to negate myself, not to negate the process, not to blame myself. You know what I mean? Those kind of things actually are, and here I have to go, those kind of things are really part of the process. That, you know, not
important to the process.
Yeah, it's part of the process, but there's a point at which you come and you go, okay, I see the whole, right? And that's the point where you can begin to release and let go. And that is the healing point. And it comes like the blossoms at whatever time is just right, right? Like every blossom comes to its fullness at just exactly the right time. So trusting that, and I recognize that, that those moments of blame and those moments of self-doubt and all that are part of the process. So, but there's a point where you look at those and you go, okay, I think, I've looked at those enough. I've experienced those enough. And maybe now I'm gonna like go forward. And to me, that's when you really start to grab hold of your own creativity. You go, okay, wow, all right, I can offer this, and you offer it like in that holistic way, as an offering to creation.
I think another thing about the how to, we're trying to find in ourselves, this balance, but it's incredibly difficult. It's very elusive, very tricky, depends on so many, we're talking about enlightenment, actually. And so part of the process is accepting we're going to fail. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to fall back. We're going to forget. It's going to happen. Because if we have an image of where we think we're supposed to be, we're just creating another disappointment for ourselves.
Distance, stress.
Except there was a friend of ours, Native American Chief Sonny Rainier. He said to me one day, he said, if you're doing the best you can, that's good enough. And that just struck me. That is so simple, Native American wisdom that's so simple, but that's really all that matters. Right. You just keep trying. You just keep doing the best you can. That's all you can do. And if you're doing the best you can't do more. Right. So, because a lot of we think we fail at something, so we think it's impossible. So we stop trying. And that's when we just limit ourselves, and get back up on that horse.
Life doesn't really let you sow so much stuff, though.
It doesn't.
Every single experience to me, right to the moments of death, moving from the body. Absolutely. Every single one is a teaching.
Never leaves us alone.
On this positive note, hopeful.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that the best we can is always different. So accepting that as well.
And life isn't working against us. It's just the universe doesn't hate itself. The universe isn't trying to destroy itself. Everything that happens in nature is only, the good, the bad, everything that happens in nature is all serves the greater purpose of nature, which is to keep life going forever and ever and ever. And when we take that into ourselves,
and evolve.
When we take that into ourselves, we can know that everything that happens to us, the good, the bad, the difficult, the pleasant, is only meant to help us to learn and grow. If we can see it that way, we don't resist it.
That's the underlying belief that has really fueled my personal process of creation. That it's not about my personal want and desire. It's about allowing life to express itself through me, and knowing that this energy that's flowing is benevolent and loving and supportive and wants my life and every single life.
And whatever life brings to you, that was totally what you needed to learn and grow. So just, you meet it, deal with it, you learn and grow. And it never ends. Life's very fulfilling when you can meet it like that.
I love that intention, and that, there's something in yoga, it's called a sankalpa. And a sankalpa in yoga means a resolve. It's like a foundation stone. And I love your foundation that you just expressed. It was really beautiful. That allows things to move and evolve and grow, and it sees things as they are, yet incorporates vision as well.
Thank you. I picked it up somewhere from some teacher for sure, but it just resonated so true with me that it became a belief.
Absolutely. I once had the great joy of like doing a musical benefit for the 13 Indigenous grandmothers, doing some music for their circle. And when it was over, I went up and talked to this Inuit grandmother, right? And she I'm pretty short. She's about like this tall. And she looks at me and she looks right at me and she goes, "Never give up."
Amazing. I think that after that, that was the perfect wrap up for the whole conversation. Yeah. I love that. Mercy and Das, I could talk with you for hours, and I see that you have so much more to elaborate on this. I hope we get many more chances.
Thank
to.
You, sweetie.
For today, I'm going to thank you for your time, your generosity, your inspiration, and just who you are for me, for all the students of Yandara and students all around the world that you have. So I'm just very grateful.
Well, thanks for having us. We appreciate your curious nature.
Really, that's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, after this time to nurture your mind and your spirit, we invite you to take a moment to consider others. A kind wish might come to mind. Know that what we learn becomes more valuable when we apply it and share it with others. So share this episode on Instagram stories, tag Yandara and I, or share with a loved one so that more people can benefit from it. Our hope is that the search will lead you home to who you already are, to what was always there. We'll be back next week with more inspiration, honest conversation, and insight into the energetic world around us. Thank you for listening and watching.